Okay.
Alright, so most of the work's been done to build this car. The car was disassembled to paint this board just to make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So what we're going to do now is reassemble the car and explain some things. One of the first things to show you which side is which, it does matter. The valve cover will only fit and go properly this direction. The holes will line up, but you're not going to be able to see that in the video. But if you put it the other way, basically your holes don't line up. You can't drop bolts through them. Also, for anybody else in the world who happens to find this video, I haven't read the rules well. I made this video for 2 people. So if you accidentally found it, then that's good for you. So what I'm going to do first, what I did, most people use roller blades, and that involves like a really thin piece of all thread. I went to Tractor Supply and into to Lowe's Home Improvement, and I found a 12-inch wide piece of all thread that was 1/2 inch threaded, which looked like that. And then we put some electrical conduit on it. When it comes, you don't get this, of course. You have to get some conduit, and this hole is drilled. I'm going to hold this up. There's holes here, 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 and here. So what I'm going to do, that's going to be the top. What will happen is we will drop the axle here, and then I have these little clamps. This is one hole. It's in the electrical section at Lowe's. It's a 1/2 inch. I got the conduit to make sure it would fit. Smallest size I could fit. Let me turn the TV down. Cubs fans are getting too loud over there. So what I did is I drilled the hole out wide enough, and you're catching this, right? Okay, so what I will do, the valve, it has to go a certain direction. The wing nut has to go on the bottom. I did put wing nuts on that's a number 10 machine screw. It is 1.5 inches long, as I recall. It's got the flat bottom on the head. You can get somewhat tapered. You don't want a tapered head on your top there though. I got some wing nuts which will help adjust the alignment later on. And that does need to go from the top down. Otherwise, you end up with this piece of thread. And what will happen here is, let me make sure we get a recording of this. You'll notice that you can move the loop there up and downwards on that little screw head once it's through the board. That's how you adjust your alignment on this car if you have any issues when you turn your valve cover car loose. That's how you would fix it. So you would have to work around with that. And I've got these things all assembled. I actually forgot to put my washer on that. So put that down real quick and take care of that. Some people do these videos, by the way, and they do it fast forward. I don't have that kind of technology. So if you want to do that, you're just going to have to do that on your own. I know YouTube's good enough now. You can just kind of swipe along the bottom and see when something big changes. So there's that. And quite honestly, if I get through this with all my parts in the right spot, laid out properly, and don't start cursing about losing a part, I'll be happy. And as you can see, I can poke these through like so. Now what will happen, this is an important part to watch. What we will do here is we will lay an axle crosswise, and then these pieces, I am laying them on opposite of each other. So you see that like one has the screw on one side, one has it on the other. You have to make sure you get the conduit in right. Looking for brackets, that's what I'm doing. And this is where the wing nut comes in handy. So what we'll do here, more washers. We were exactly one washer shy there for a moment. And then I will tighten. You don't want to over tighten this yet, because you know this is where you see how you can kind of bump it back and forth. And this is how you would adjust alignment on your car. So I'm just going to run those down just tight enough to kind of hold it down for the time being. It does have a little bit of slop in it. What I might have to do later on is actually take this back loose and get a pair of pliers and kind of pinch them all down a little bit, just to give them a little bit tighter, a little bit nicer hold on this axle. Ooh, that almost got a little screwed up. And this is just a nut. The only reason you really want to use a wing nut is it will give you, if you have to make adjustments at a track, or if you're at a little event racing your little car, and you have some issues with it just not wanting to drive properly, won't go straight, whatever. Having these wing nuts versus a regular nut will allow you to simply grab the nut with your hand and just crack it loose and get it good and tight so it won't come loose afterwards. That's why you'd primarily want to use a wing nut, in my opinion. And now that's set for now. Now this is also important. I have this is a 1/2 inch piece of thread, meaning pretty big. What we will do is we will slide these washers on like so. And what this will do, and I'm going to grab a nut, 1/2 inch thread, standard thread nut, run that down. Now, just to show you, I've got that finger tight right now. When we turn this upside down, when we set our valve cover on like so, what this will do is with that washer right there and that the nuts on the front, what this will do is it will keep our axle from walking back and forth by any more than just that little bit. It's got a little bit of play. And what we might be able to do here, I didn't have 2 3/4 wrenches here at home. We will put a wrench on that side. We will put a wrench on the other side, and we will tighten both into each other. Of course, you don't want to overdo that. You could bust a board. And now, no play, and that's key. The next thing we're going to do, because we've got to have a backing on the wheel, we're going to run one more nut down on each side. Again, this is my way. The rules that I'm working under right now, there's various ones out there. The wheelbase can be no wider than 12 inches. I have seen some that say 14. The rules we're working under right now say 12, because I want this to be a generic car. I'm not building this for fun. I'm trying to build the most durable car I can. Rules also pretty much universally say you can only have a 6-inch wide wheel. This is a push mower lawnmower wheel, and this is the steel wheel with a ball bearing set. Like I can squeeze that, like the wheel's not turning, but I can sit here and I can turn the bearing. I don't know if the video is picking up that I'm doing that or not. But to me, what that will allow you to do is actually to tighten bolts, or tighten nuts rather, into the wheel itself, and the wheel will still be able to turn. Notice how my finger is holding tightly on the wheel, and the wheel is still able to turn. So what we can do, we can tighten just, and this is a little trick too if you ever need a lock on something. If you put one wrench on the rear nut, if this one will fit, okay, we're gonna do this the other way. Put this wrench on that nut, and this wrench on that nut, and I'm gonna tighten it. Valve cover doesn't need to be on there at this point. Tighten this into that. What that will do is it kind of locks those 2 nuts together. They're pressed into each other in the thread. We'll come over here to the other side. We will do the same thing. It's still good and tight, and now we have 2 nuts together. Next thing we will do is we will slide a wheel on. Now this, if you look at it, it's a nylon lock nut. You go to any hardware store with anybody competent at all, they know what a nylon lock nut is. We will thread that on. Now what you'll notice, it doesn't quite want to go on. Now what I may have to do is actually put this on backwards, which would be a real chore. Don't forget your wheel. Put the wheel on. And what I may even have to do here is actually loosen up all those nuts. See, because so what I'm going to do, I'm going to have Mallory pause the video in a moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen these wheels up, and I'm just so I can move this, just adjust this axle just a little bit to make sure I get good into the nylon here. We're going to pause the video because assembling the rear axle assembly is going to be the exact same as the front. It's going to take several minutes of video. So I'm going to have Mallory pause the video here, and we'll pick back up later.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so the camera's rolling again. What we are looking at here is the bottom of the valve cover car. And as we said when we left off before the edit, is that we need to put the other axle on following the same instruction assemblies. This time I did try to make sure that before I tightened anything, I had it all nice and centered up. You do need a nylon nut. Why did I say luck? You need a nylon nut on the ends. The reason for this, I had my my 12 and 11-year-old nieces playing with this thing in the driveway earlier with just standard nuts. About the only weakness we found in this car was the nuts would come loose. So nylon nuts on the end. And you see, you want to make sure on the 12-inch stud that you center it up so that you're into the nylon on each side. Otherwise, you're going to have wheels flying off. The only thing we've got left to do now, remember your adjustment. If you use these wing nuts and you can kind of pull, if you know much about mechanics and all that, you'll know, but you don't really need a screwdriver and a nut in most situations, hopefully, to loosen this thing up and tighten it. You can just kind of use the wing nut, and the other side should more or less come together for you. This would allow you to adjust your alignment without taking the valve cover off the board when you build your car. Now we're going to set the car the correct way. The valve cover itself is behind me. No modifications to it. While I am putting this together,